We have a social and fun full moon coming up on Tuesday, while Mercury slows down in preparation for going retrograde. Hi, I'm Lori Barnes. I am the astrologer who helps people find their true calling. Stay tuned to learn more in this week's Aquarius full moon video. Full moons are always in opposing pairs of signs. And this month, the Aquarius full moon is opposite the sun, which is traveling through the sign of Leo. These two signs are on the opposite ends of the same line, with personal creativity and passion on the Leo end and group reform and innovation on the Aquarius end. I always recommend that you have a copy of your chart in front of you when listening to a video like this one, because it will help you see where the activity is taking place in your chart. You want to find the astrological houses Leo and Aquarius occupy in your chart, and then look at what those houses represent. And then you can personalize what I'm saying in a much deeper way. If you don't have a copy of your chart, you can get one for free from many of the online generators, like at astro.com, which is the site that I recommend. And if you're not sure what the meaning of the houses are or the meaning of the planet and sign symbols, I will include a link in the description below that will give you all that information. Okay, back to the full moon. Full moons are about releasing the culmination of something, an ending or a blooming, compromise, making choices, and they're always bursting with energy, as we can see by the bright moon in the sky. It's full of light, full of the nature of the energy of the signs of the sun and the moon. The moon reflects the light of the sun, and that's why they're both involved. So the days before and the days after the full moon are really full of this energy that is maturing at the full moon and becomes full of wisdom as it wanes towards the next new moon. The sign Leo is the sign the sun is beaming its vital, life-giving light through. Leo is about individual expression, passion, being recognized for the qualities of leadership, generosity, and noble action. And recognition is really important to Leo if the element of fire is predominant in your chart. And whether it's your sun, moon, ascendant, or even Mercury that is occupying the sign of Leo in your chart, these placements, sun, moon, Leo, ascendant, often indicate someone who's very affectionate, loyal, generous, carries an air of nobility and leadership. And this is the sun's home sign. That is, it's the sign that the sun naturally rules in astrology. And so there's this solar vitality to the sign of Leo. And this, of course, every sign has its shadow side. So the shadow side of Leo is arrogance, vanity, being overbearing, displaying a condescending nature, and it can be kind of rude or cruel to others. And so, you can be on the lookout for that Leo energy, but we like to focus on the more positive expression of Leo, which is very creative and passionate. The opposite sign of Leo, of course, is Aquarius, and Aquarius is the sign of the full moon. And the sign of Aquarius is about the group. It's about the masses, how to impact the masses, intellectual creativity, especially as it serves a group of people. Aquarius is less about self-recognition and more about reforming and recognizing a cause that impacts society, a great number of people. Aquarius isn't really prone to emotional fluctuation, but rather they have this cool objectivity or pragmatic approach to things. They're known for coming up with brilliant ideas, connecting with others on an intellectual level, being progressive by inventing something new rather than doing it the way we always have. And Aquarius tends to have a concern for humanity as a whole. There's usually an interest in science, technology, and cutting edge types of subjects. Aquarius is one of the air signs, which are known for their social nature. And Aquarius can be helpful in mediation, cooperation, and diplomacy. Now, the shadow side of Aquarius is that it can sometimes be a sign that is impractical when there's kind of like this overly idealistic nature to whatever it's being applied to. And sometimes Aquarians have difficulty embracing others' viewpoints and can undervalue a personal connection in favor of a large group where you can remain impersonal or preferring to work alone for long periods of time. Leo and Aquarius are both fixed signs. And at the time of the full moon, there's this predominance of planets traveling through fixed signs. So we have Venus in Leo also, as well as the sun. And then we have Jupiter and Uranus in the fixed sign of Taurus. So this predominance of fixed signs can help you see where you're maintaining the current course may not be helpful, or it may be helpful. It's kind of like figuring out, do I stay the course like fixed signs do, or is there an adjustment that needs to be made? And it can help you know if you need to integrate like some different perspectives that may be stubbornly resisting change. This is a highly energetic full moon where all of this is kind of coming together. Now, with Venus already retrograde, there is this introspective and reflective vibe happening at the same time as the full moon, where you may be breaking out of some ruts in relationships. And those of you with a lot of fixed signs in your chart may feel especially energized to make significant progress on one or more important areas in your life. That may be projects, and maybe relationships with others, probably relationships with others, since Venus is, or the Venus retrograde vibe is like the main astrological event of late July, all of August, and then early September. And just so you know, the fixed signs are Aquarius, which is the sign of this full moon, and then Leo, which is the sign that the sun is traveling through, and then Taurus, which is where Uranus and Jupiter are traveling through right now, and the sign of Scorpio. And then the degree of this full moon is 9 degrees Aquarius. So if you have any planets or major points around that degree in one of those 4 fixed signs, this moon is going to be super energetic for you. The date of the full moon is coming up this Tuesday, August the 1st. And if you're on the west coast of the United States, it'll be at 11:32 a.m. in the morning. And if you're in the US on the East Coast, it'll be at 2:32 p.m. in the afternoon. And then if you're in Rome, Italy, where I usually am, it'll be at 8:32 p.m. And I'm actually broadcasting from Central Illinois. So if you're in Illinois or the US Midwest, it'll be at 1:32 p.m. in the afternoon on Tuesday. So that's the date and the time for the full moon. I'd like to talk to you a bit about the Venus and Mercury retrogrades that are happening in August. Of course, Venus is already retrograde right now, and I want to give you the dates of those as well, so you can get them on your calendar. So for the Venus retrograde, the Venus shadow started on June the 20th, and then it went retrograde on July 22nd, and Venus will go direct on September the 3rd, and then it will leave the post-retrograde shadow on October the 7th. And that's when the complete retrograde cycle for Venus will be over. And during this entire period is when you will want to work with the Venus retrograde. You want to be more introspective than usual. Take a deep look at your relating style with others and yourself. It's a time to find resolutions for unresolved relationship issues, including those with yourself. And then put into action any realignments, refinements, and resolutions that you think are needed. For the Mercury retrograde, the dates, we will have the pre-shadow period starting right after the Aquarius full moon, and that will be on August the 3rd. That's when the pre-shadow starts. It will go retrograde on August the 23rd. It'll go direct on September 15th, and the post-shadow period will end on September the 30th. Now, I always include these pre-shadow and post-shadow dates because they're important. The pre-shadow date is the day that the planet crosses the degree that the planet ends up retrograding back to. And when the planet crosses that degree, it's in the pre-shadow period, and it will continue to move forward in degrees until it goes retrograde. And then it goes retrograde and it'll go back to that pre-shadow degree. And that's when it goes direct. And, then it'll go direct and it'll be going forward again, moving over those same degrees, because it's gone backwards and now it's going forward, and it'll stay going forward, and it will reach the degree where it first went retrograde. And that is the period of time when it ends the post-retrograde shadow. So you'll likely notice and start feeling the slowing down of the planets in the pre-shadow periods. It's when you really want to start working with the retrograde, is in that pre-shadow period. And usually in that pre-shadow period, you can start to get an idea of what the theme of the retrograde is for you. So you really want to pay attention to those pre and post retrograde time periods, and especially what house the sign of the retrograde is, where it is occupied, what house the sign occupies in your chart. Now, in that post retrograde period, after the planet goes direct, but it's still moving across those same degrees again and picking up speed. That's a time when some of those resolutions, realignments, refinements of the retrogrades, they start soaking in, or maybe when you start taking action, if you needed to make some course correction. And, if that's confusing, I understand, like, the concept takes a little while to understand. I actually have an article that I wrote. It was specifically on Mercury, but the concept of pre and post shadow applies to any of the planets that go retrograde. So I'm going to include a link below. It's called Mercury Retrograde Survival Skills. And I do describe this process, and I have some visuals that will help you understand if you would like to know more. Okay, Mercury moves into Virgo on July 28th, and that's just a few days before this upcoming Aquarius full moon, and it joins Mars in Virgo. Mars is already traveling through the sign of Virgo. Virgo is one of Mercury's home signs. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, and because it's retrograding in Virgo, it's going to spend a longer time in Virgo than usual. The retrograde takes place completely in the sign of Virgo. That is, the Mercury retrograde takes place completely in the sign of Virgo. You look at what house Virgo is in, and that's going to tell you where the Mercury retrograde is happening in your chart. And then if you're unsure of the meaning of the houses, I will have a link to that below as well. The Mercury retrograde is going to ask us to reflect back on how we go about working with details when it comes to communication, technology, and anything related to business and commerce. That's Mercury retrograde in Virgo. So you're going to have a chance to reframe any negative messages your inner critic is saying to you. Virgo is the sign that can get lost in the details and be perfectionistic and kind of lose track of the big picture, the vision, and be delayed because it's focused on minor details and perfectionism instead of what's most important. And when that's happening, that's when that inner critic kind of comes out into your head saying, not nice things. So that is a Virgo thing that you will have the opportunity to work on during this Mercury retrograde. So, that concept of, have you ever done this? Just worked on something endlessly, and just, it's not getting done, and it's not getting done on time because you're just so caught up on the perfectionism. So that's what you want to watch out for. So again, look at the house that Virgo occupies in your chart, because that's going to give you more information on the specific topics, people, and events that are likely to be activated by this Mercury retrograde. Because Mercury is the planet of communication, when it's retrograde, all mercurial things can be delayed. Anything with an RE in front of it is highlighted. So like redo, redecorate, redesign, renegotiate, or resale. You'll want to build extra time in your calendar so it's easier to manage any kind of miscommunications, delays, and just have time to do that reflection, that introspective work that's so helpful during a retrograde. So if you really want to get the most out of a retrograde period, you want to invest time in introspection. And to make it more personal, according to your chart, you want to consider the topics, people, and events represented by the houses occupied by the sign of the retrograde. Okay, so for Mercury retrograde, you're looking at the Virgo house, and for the Venus retrograde, you're looking at the Leo house. Now, with Mars in Virgo until August 27th, the Mercury retrograde has a kind of like a supercharged boost of energy because Mars is there as well. So you may find that your mind is racing, like lots and lots of thoughts. And if that's kind of like already who you are, then it may be even more thinking, just lots of things coming into your mind all at the same time. It also may show up as you just feeling like driven to do all those details and like wear yourself out. And then you find out that all that work that you put into it was like a bunch of work with little return on your investment. So this retrograde is about learning how to work smarter and more efficiently, not harder or longer. You may have to let go of some of the finer details in order to have a more successful outcome or to get something done on time. Or you may find that you lack the kind of detailed work needed to make something successful. You want to watch for how this energy shows up for you, because it can often show up as the exact opposite, like a shadow or projection trying to send you a message. So remember, you can only compare yourself to yourself. So rather than letting this video or any other video dictate exactly what this means for you, You want to take this information and use it to critically assess your chart, where's change needed, and then take action to follow up based on what applies to your life. Astrology can open doors for you, but be sure not to take general information and apply it to yourself without thinking about or considering where you fall on the spectrum of the symbolic meanings. There's the descriptions of the signs, and then there's like the shadow descriptions of the signs. And so that's like that line, that continuum. And so you want to think about, are things showing up for you that way, or is it more like a projection, like you're seeing it in others instead of seeing it in yourself? So those are some things to think about under the retrograde. Now, I understand that this may be difficult for you to do. So if you would like a professional astrologer to help you make sense of the retrogrades and how that's working in your chart, schedule a consultation with me. I love working with retrogrades. I work with them. I've been working with them for years. I work with them in my personal life, in my personal chart. And so I would love to help you work with them and make them a useful and helpful part of life. Now we have the two personal planets, Venus and Mercury, overlapping in their retrograde cycles. So this combines our communication style and our relating style planets together. And remember, retrogrades call for introspection and reflection, and you'll want to think about how they are intersecting. How does your communication and relating style work together, or are they at odds with each other? And how does that impact the way you express yourself to others and the way you engage in relationships with others? While Venus and Mercury are retrograde, any unresolved relationship issues are likely to come to a head in August. This also is going to bring up the words you use in resolving any relationship issues, especially the ones that seriously need attention. Your communication style is beyond your words, right? It's your behavior and your body language. Like if you tend to shut down or walk out and leave, if the relationship situation has come up, that's still a form of communication. So think about like the verbal and non-verbal forms of communication. We're blending the energy of the two retrogrades together because it's more likely that they'll both be about the same pressing issue or a couple of different pressing issues of life than two completely separate things. Of course, it can happen, but when major things are happening in life, that tends to take all of our focus. And the retrogrades are probably going to bring something to focus, maybe one or two major things to focus. But, let's face it, communication and relating, they go hand in hand. And so we have the communication planet and the relating planet retrograde at the same time. So it's likely that they're going to be showing you kind of like two different perspectives of probably the same issue that's coming up for you in life. We really want to intentionally work with these two retrogrades to help you resolve some unfinished business or correct the course of something so it works out better in the future for you. Heed these messages because the universe is usually trying to help you avoid stubbornly insisting on maintaining the course rather than correcting course. And, there's a saying, I don't know exactly how it goes, but, something along the line of, catch something early so it doesn't grow into a larger issue later. And that's what retrogrades are really, really great for. And this is an opportunity to work with Venus and Mercury together. And if you remember earlier this year, or at the end of last year and earlier this year, we had the chance to work with Mars and Mercury together. And now we have the chance to work with Venus and Mercury together. So it'll be quite interesting to see what comes up. So to add to this retrograde mix, Uranus is putting some tension on Venus, and this is through a square aspect, which is going to help bring to the surface any of these unresolved relationship issues that tend to come up during Venus retrograde. So we have kind of like a catalyst that's probably going to bring it to your attention. Maybe something will happen. You'll be surprised. There'll be some sort of disruption that you weren't expecting, and it's going to uncover some of those unresolved relationship issues so that you can work on them. Both the Uranus aspect to Venus and the Aquarius full moon indicate that this is a time where you may find progressive and innovative resolutions. You can find a fresh new way of doing things differently. You can tap into these innovative ideas that pave the way for a better way of relating and communicating in your relationships moving forward. There's another configuration coming up, and that's going to happen on August the 2nd, right as the full moon is still really bright in the sky, but it's on the other side, the waning side of the full moon. So, once the moon peaks at the full moon on the time that I mentioned earlier, it goes into the waning phase of the lunar cycle. And that configuration is that the planet Mercury is going to be opposite the planet Saturn. So remember that opposition always means a pair of signs. And so in this case, Saturn is traveling through Pisces and Mercury in Virgo. So this configuration is going to contribute to the energy of the retrograde. And this Mercury opposite Saturn can bring to light where you're hitting your own limitations when it comes to communication, and where you might feel like it's hard to express your voice, that inner critic coming into play. This configuration is especially potent for those of you with significant placements in the mutable signs, especially Virgo and Pisces, the signs that Mercury and Saturn are in. And it can also impact the other mutable signs of Gemini and Sagittarius. Another way this can show up is that with the Saturn Mercury configuration is that Saturn's like reminding you to stay focused on the important things and keep an eye on the big picture, because Saturn's in Pisces, right? And then Mercury's over there in Virgo, kind of like invested in the details, can't see the forest for the trees. Saturn might bring some limitations. It might metaphorically throw up a brick wall that you run into. And really, it's more like the universe giving you, a tip that, hey, there's a better, shorter, or easier way to do things. Maybe you're trying to do too much, too many details, you're overdoing the details, and Saturn's kind of like saying, hey, stop it. It's, kind of idea where less is more. And even though this is a pretty quick moving aspect between Saturn and Mercury, Mercury is going to stay in Virgo for its entire retrograde, and Saturn will be in Pisces the entire retrograde, or the entire Mercury retrograde. So even though they're going to be moving apart by degree, they're still going to have this configuration by sign during the entire Mercury retrograde. So do watch out for that voice of the inner critic that lives in all of us. And in fact, Mercury retrograde may be all about the inner critic for you. It really depends on your chart, but you really want to watch out for that. And if you do find out you have that negative voice constantly in your head, that inner critic telling you that you aren't good enough, or that you're an imposter with that imposter syndrome, or any other negative commenting by yourself to yourself, use this retrograde period to calm and reassure your inner critic. It's a time to reframe your language using positive self-statements. And it's a time to be extra gentle on yourself. And be aware that the internal language you use with yourself is really important. So you want to start working on changing that perspective. And you start by changing the language. When you catch yourself saying something that's negative language, you reframe it to something positive, and just kind of gently push yourself along. What you don't want to do is criticize yourself for having those negative thoughts, because that's not helpful. You want to recognize it when it's happening, reframe it, and move on, and just do it over and over and over. I work with this a lot in my coaching practice. I really love helping people through this kind of stuff. So if you'd like to work with me in a coaching type of setting, a coach who works with astrology and life coaching, please contact me. I'll include all that information below. So this full moon this weekend and culminating on Tuesday, it's a good time to enjoy yourself. Leo is about enjoying yourself, and Aquarius is one of the social signs. So do something you're passionate about, something creative, whether it's dancing, karaoke, playing a musical instrument, painting, ceramics, or even enjoying another artist's work, like at a gallery or a museum. It's a great time to enjoy yourself, especially the stuff that you're really passionate about. Get together with friends who enjoy the same type of fun as you do, or organize a party with your funnest friends. And with the moon in Aquarius, you may enjoy volunteering for an organization that's really close to your heart. Like if you love pets, you might want to volunteer there, or beach cleanup. Of course, be careful with the weather. I know it's really hot in some parts of the world. It's really hot where I am. Do something that you just really enjoy, that you really love, and make sure it's about you. Personal creativity is highlighted with Leo. So it's not about pleasing everyone else. It's do something that you really enjoy. Okay. Another thing that you could do is check out this AI stuff. It's kind of like all over right now in the news, and it's very much an Aquarius kind of thing. So, browse some sites that have added this technology, like Canva has an AI thing now, or go to an AI site like ChatGPT. have fun with that. And I'd highly recommend that you try to pre-plan for the retrogrades in August by taking your calendar and adding more downtime so that you can work with the retrogrades. And the best way to work with them is, to do that reflecting and introspection, like we've talked about. And in order to do that, you may have to actually put some time in your calendar and reserve it for you. You want to start with that. You want to start with the reflection and introspection first. Then you work on how you're going to realign, resolve, and reframe the things that come up for you. Remembering that resolving unfinished business and relationships is highly recommended or highly likely during August and the Venus retrograde. Just in case you didn't catch them before, I'm going to mention the dates again real quick. The Mercury retrograde dates are the pre-shadow starts August the 3rd. It goes retrograde on August the 23rd. It goes direct, Mercury goes direct on September the 15th, and it ends the entire cycle, and the post-retrograde shadow ends on the 30th of September. The dates of Venus retrograde are that the pre-shadow period started on June 20th, the retrograde started on July 22nd, it goes direct on September the 3rd, and the post-shadow period ends on October 7th, as well as the entire retrograde cycle. So let's wrap up today's video with an inspirational quote on reframing. This is from Susan C. Young, who says, "Reframing encourages you to say, let's look at this another way. By changing the frame around a situation, you not only change your perception of it, but its meaning for you as well. If you were to take one painting and view it in 3 different frames, each combination would offer a completely different presentation. Your perceptions work the same way." So I think it's a long quote, but I think it's very applicable to what we talked about today. I do always include the video quote in my email newsletter. So if it's a long one, and if you wanted to get that, to write it down, you sign up for my newsletter and I will send it to you. In order to subscribe, you can hit the link below that I'm going to include in the description. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be back again with the video for you in mid-August for the Leo new moon, which is coming up on Wednesday, August the 16th. If you have any questions or thoughts, feel free to leave them down below in the comments. And if you liked this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button and you subscribe to my channel. If you'd like to book a consultation with me, you can find me at LoriBarnesAstrology.com. That's LoriBarnes astrology, or email me at hello@LoriBarnesAstrology.com. I'll see you next time. Ciao.